Hey, what is going on, guys? Today I'm excited. We've got the Marantz Cinema 30. This is Marantz's flagship AVR. Now we're going to be doing some videos on this. I'll walk you through on how to use it and set it up. Today's video is going to be an unboxing and overview. Now over the next several weeks, I'll be using the Marantz Cinema 30 with our channel sponsor, Arendal Sound's brand new 1528 Tower 8s that they'll be announcing tomorrow. Check this out. Arendal Sound is up to something big, like really big. The new 1528 Tower 8s are massive. They measure 11.4 inches wide by 21.6 inches deep and a whopping 53.1 inches tall. And that doesn't even include the feet. And did I mention the weight? How about 174 pounds for each speaker? I can't wait to experience the new 1528 series here on the Youthman channel. We've got this info review. I've been a big fan of Marantz for probably the past, I don't know, at least 4 or 5 years. The first Marantz product I ever had a chance to review here on the channel was the SR8012, great AVR. Then they sent me the SR8015, absolutely loved it, bought that unit. Used that for quite some time, powering my entire system here in my dedicated theater room. Then I swapped over to separates, and so I went to the Marantz AV7705, and then later the AV7706. And so I'm really excited to check this unit out. They've redesigned just the entire look and the style and the feel of it, which I think is super cool. So I can't wait to see this physically in person. So let's go ahead and get this unboxed. I'll show you what comes in the box, and then we'll talk about all its features as well. All right, so the first thing I'm noticing is a new, just really classy accessory box. Of course, this doesn't add to the sound, but it sure does add to the experience of unboxing. Man, I've never seen somebody put their remote inside this like presentation. This is pretty slick here. Definitely liking what I'm seeing on the new remote. This is definitely a nice upgrade from the previous remotes that I've owned. We've got some nice gold accents as well as the bottom logo there. Buttons have like a little clicking sound, as you can hear that, but nice rubber with some tactile response. And if we turn out all the lights and hit the side button, you can see we've got backlit buttons for each one. Got our AAA batteries, owner's manual, some information about HEOS. Down here we have our antennas for Wi-Fi as well as Bluetooth. And then beneath this, got a few more accessories here. So we have our AM/FM antenna. They do include some labels for your speaker wires, so I've always appreciated that about Denon and Marantz. That's really convenient. And then this guy, I hate to say it, it's pretty useless. It's basically what I call a rocket ship. So if you don't have a tripod, this is great. But if you have an actual tripod, I would use that with your calibration microphone. But this will support that. You just don't really have much adjustability with this. Of course, we got our power cable. Nice thick power cable, got a 2-prong IEC, and then of course we've got our Audyssey XT32 microphone. We'll use that for calibration. All right, let's go ahead and pull this out. Now this unit I believe is about 42 pounds, so it has got a beefy toroidal power supply in it. All right, so far it's just a really nice presentation. Kind of reminds me of like how Apple does all of their products. All right, let's take a look at that front chassis right here. Woo, I like that. So with the new Cinema series, we've got a new redesigned front faceplate. Of course, we got our volume as well as our source indicator and our standard porthole, that's signature of the Marantz series. But over here you can see we've got this very textured look right here around the power button. And then this is actually raised on the front faceplate. And that just gives it some depth as well as some additional character. So we'll go ahead and remove these and take a look at the drop-down door. We can open up this door right here, just giving it a little tug, and it'll gently open to unveil additional options beneath the unit. On the far left, we got options for pure direct MDAX, your status, the dimmer, which will control the brightness of the display, and then your zone 2 and zone 3, both on and off, and as well as your sources. Down here at the bottom is where we'll connect the Audyssey calibration microphone. If you want to connect a USB drive or a USB thumb drive with some maybe FLAC files, you can utilize the front USB port right there. And over to your far right are all your controls for your setup as well as your calibration. So let's go ahead and close this up. We'll take a look at the rear. So the first thing we'll do is we'll go ahead and install our Bluetooth and our Wi-Fi antennas. Just tighten those on, just like that. Up at the top left, we've got some legacy inputs for coaxial as well as fiber optic or Toslink. If you're going to hardwire the unit, we've got an Ethernet port right here. We've got 7 HDMI inputs that are all 4K 120 and 8K 60 compatible. And then we have 3 HDMI outputs, one that includes ARC and eARC. Over to the far right, we've got some legacy composite as well as component audio inputs. If you want to hook up an antenna, you've got options right here. To the right of that is a USB, but this is only for power. So again, if you're going to connect maybe a hard drive or a USB drive that has some high resolution audio, maybe FLAC files, you're going to need to utilize the USB port on the front of the unit. Now right across the middle, we've got all of our RCA inputs, including for zone 2, but to the right of that, I always love when a manufacturer has pre-out for every single channel. What this allows you to do, even though this has a beefy power supply, a big massive toroidal transformer, it'll provide 140 watts with 2 channels driven, but it does guarantee up to 70% of that with all channels driven. But if you find that you want more power, you can always use any number of these or even all of them to offload to an external amplifier and not use the internal amplification built into the Cinema 30. Another thing I love about this unit is we have 4 independent subwoofer outputs. This is going to allow us to get better calibration, better seat-to-seat response if you have more than one subwoofer in your setup. For those of you that are into vinyl, we do have our phono inputs as well as our ground. And then we've got 3 separate trigger outputs. Now these would be used in conjunction with, say, an amplifier, so that when this unit turns on, it sends a little voltage to the amplifier to tell it to turn on. And then when you turn the Cinema 30 off, it sends another signal to the amplifier telling it to turn it off. In the middle, we've got an input for an external IR sensor. We've got additional remote control, including an RS-232C. Below that, we see some of the key features of the Cinema 30, including Dolby Vision, Dolby Atmos, IMAX Enhance, IMAX DTS, DTSX, Oro 3D. You also have 2 versions of calibration, room calibration, and that's Dirac and Audyssey XT32. Now the Dirac is an additional upcharge, and so you'll have to purchase that separately if you want that feature, but it's nice to be able to have the flexibility depending on which room correction software you prefer. And down at the bottom, we've got all our speaker terminals. And so I love using banana plugs, which makes it really easy and convenient when connecting all of your speaker wires. Now, although there is a massive amount of inputs and outputs on the rear of this, everything is very nicely laid out with all the different boxes showing you which ones are grouped. And then we also have just some really nice bright labels to make it easy to see even in low light situations. Now, as I mentioned, at first I'll be using this in a 2.0 and a 2.1 setup in my living room, and then I'll move it back into the theater room and I'll connect this using it as a 7.2.4 Dolby Atmos setup. So currently in my living room setup, I'm running a Denon 4800H for the receiver, and then I've got that connected to 2 Outlaw Audio 2220 monoblock amplifiers. Now this setup is pretty simple. We don't have any inputs other than the TV. We're using eARC from the TV going into the Denon and then out of there into the 2 amplifiers and then out to the 2 speakers. Sometimes I'll run a sub, depending on what I've got in for review. but currently I'm doing this just in a 2.0 channel because I want to see what these speakers that I'm not able to show you till tomorrow can do just in and of themselves. So I've been running with the 2 monoblocks, but I want to see how well they do with just the additional power of the internal amplification from the Cinema 30, and then I'll add the 2 amplifiers in a little bit, and then I also have even a bigger amplifier to really see what these guys can do with all the power. So I'm going to go ahead and get the Cinema 30 set up here, and we'll come back and I'll take you into the menu. We'll take a look at what the calibration looks like. All right, so I've got everything connected to the Cinema 30. We're going to open this up and connect the Audyssey microphone right here. We're going to go ahead and power it up. Okay, so here we are in the Setup Assistant. So this is new for the Cinema series. The older version, like the SR8012 and the SR8015, had a little bit different user interface. So we're going to walk through this. I've got a dedicated video on how to set up Audyssey XT32. I'll link in the description below, but this will give you a good idea of how easy this is to set up. So we'll click Next. On this screen, it just shows you what's included and what's not included. Here it says we're going to be setting up your speakers. We'll click Next. So on this screen, it's going to ask if you have more than 11 speakers, not counting your subwoofers. So let's just say we did. I want to show you what this does. The Cinema 30 can only amplify 11 speakers. So if you have 13 speakers, you're going to need a secondary 2-channel amplifier connected. And so here it's going to ask you, are you going to use that separate amplifier to power your front speakers, or do you want to use that to power your height 3 or your front wides? So let's say you're going to power everything with the internal amplifier, your front left, front right, your center channel, 2 side surrounds, 2 rear surrounds, and 4 Atmos speakers. So if you wanted to add a 3rd set of Atmos speakers, or maybe front wide, you would select this option, and then you're going to assign that later on in the menu. But for now, we're going to go ahead and click back. And we're going to set, let's actually go back one more time. And here we're going to say no, because I'm only setting up a 2-channel system in my living room. So this just shows you visually how you're going to connect those speakers, how you're going to splice the wiring and separate those. So this is just very basic, but for those of you that have never done this, I think this is a super helpful tutorial showing you exactly what you need to do and where you need to connect those cables on the rear of the unit. So then it's going to ask you, do you have a center channel? If you do, click yes. In my case, no. We do not have side surrounds or rear surrounds, so we'll tell that no as well, and we'll click next. So if you were to have Atmos speakers, maybe it's 2 speakers or 4 speakers, you would select that here. Let's say you had 2 speakers. So here you'll select what your front speakers are. Are they front heights, top fronts, top middle, or your Dolby front firing? So let's just say you had top fronts. Then it's going to ask you, where are your rear speakers? Maybe you have top rears, or maybe you have rear height surrounds. So you would set that up accordingly. And I love the visual here that helps you to visually see what is going on in your room. But in my case, again, I'm going to back up and we're going to select none. Here's where you select the amount of subwoofers you have. If I hit yes, you can see I've got 1, 2, 3, or 4. Don't worry about the positioning of them. That's what Audyssey's for. It's going to level match those and time align them. But we've got 4 independent subwoofers, and so I really like that feature. Now once you select your subwoofer, you can either choose the standard or you can have directional bass. And that's something new that they've introduced probably in the past year or so. And so I haven't had any experience with that, so I would be curious to try both in my system once I have more subwoofers to play with. But let's just say you chose standard. Here it's going to show you where you would connect subwoofer 1, where you would connect subwoofer 2, where you would connect subwoofer 3, and where you would connect subwoofer 4. So again, this is just really, really easy, very intuitive. I really like what Marantz has done here, but I'm going to back all the way out and we're going to select no subwoofer in my setup. So in my living room setup, I'm just going to be running 2 speakers, full range, because like I mentioned, the speakers that I have in for review are massive speakers, and I really want to see what the Cinema 30 can do just with those speakers alone and no subwoofer. We'll click next. So now it's going to check to make sure you've got those speakers connected. So here we hear the sound coming from the left speaker, so we're good there. And we hear sound coming from the right speaker, so all is well. If you have a lot of speakers set up, then it's going to go through each individual speaker to make sure that you've got them connected correctly on the rear of the unit. Here's where it talks you through on how to set up your calibration microphone. I've already got it set up on a tripod, not the included rocket ship over on the right. We'll click next. We've already connected it to the setup mic input on the front of the unit, so we're good there. So here it shows you the different positions that we're going to measure. We'll measure from position 1, which is your primary listening position. You want to make sure that's at ear level and right where you normally sit. I've already got the microphone set up in my primary listening position. Once it takes a measurement, it'll ask you to move the microphone to position 2, take a measurement. Position 3, take a measurement, so on and so forth until you get through all 8 positions. So we'll click next. The microphone, you want to make sure it's aimed straight up in the air and at ear level. I've turned off my HVAC. You want to have the room as quiet as possible, and then we'll go ahead and take our first measurement. And to do that, we click Begin Test. So look here, we forgot to actually turn off the top front. So it says, hey, I tried to send a frequency to that and we did not hear sound. And so it wants to make sure that we've got that connection. So I'm gonna have to back up the entire process. So let's go ahead and click back. We'll keep going back. So again, they're really making this dummy proof. They want to make sure that you get this thing set up correctly and everything sounds as great as it can. So that's one thing that Audyssey does that a lot of the other ones don't do, is it walks you step by step and makes it really, really easy. Okay, so we have sound out of the left. We have sound out of the right. And we're going to go ahead and take our first measurement again. We'll click next. And now it says it's wanting me to move it to position 2, which is no more than 2 feet to the left of position 1. So I'm just going to grab the microphone and we'll slide it over. Still got it at the same height as before, in position 2, and we'll go ahead and click continue. Now I'll go ahead and pause the video here and I'll go ahead and finish measuring the rest of the remaining speakers, but you get an idea of what you're supposed to do in your setup. So now that it's measured all 8 positions, it's analyzed that data. Now we have a couple of optional features that we can either turn on or turn off. The first one is Audyssey Dynamic EQ. By enabling this, this is going to boost the bass frequencies as well as your surrounds when you're listening at lower volume. As you increase the volume and when you get to reference, it's basically disabled. So the louder you turn your volume, the less of dynamic EQ is going to be applied. I actually like using this because a lot of times I'm not listening at reference, and so that gives us what we call a house curve on those lower frequencies. So I'm going to choose yes on this. And now it's going to apply those room corrections. We'll click next. And it says now we can disconnect the microphone. So here you can see we have Audyssey XT32 on, Audyssey Dynamic EQ on, but Audyssey Dynamic Volume is turned off. I don't like using volume or dynamic volume It does too much compression to the volume of that. It's supposed to kind of level match it. I don't like it. So I recommend leaving that setting off. We'll go ahead and click next. And this is just reminding you to make sure that you have installed the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth antennas. We'll click next. It's just going to give us a physical diagram of how to do that. We've already showed you how to do that. Next, we're going to set up the network. So it's going to look for the Wi-Fi network since I do not have a physical hardwired Ethernet cable attached. So I do have an Apple device, so I'm going to pull out my phone and I'm going to go to the settings, and it's saying go to Wi-Fi, and we're going to scroll down, and it does say Cinema 30 down at the very bottom, so I'll click that and we'll click next. So now we've got AirPlay set up with my phone so I can stream music directly to the Cinema 30. All right, so now we're connected to my network. We'll click next. And you're wanting to verify that you hear the sound. So here we're going to change it from Marantz Cinema 30 to the living room, and that's just a label. And I'm going to go ahead and enable auto updates and set Eastern time. So it's already verified that ARC is enabled, so we'll click next. And we do want to use CEC so that my wife can use the TV remote to control the volume and everything. We'll click next. So here you select your inputs. So let's just say you had a Blu-ray player, you're going to connect it with HDMI. Shows you where to connect that on any one of those. We click next. I'm not going to actually test that because I don't have one hooked up currently, so we'll hit skip. And then we'll just come down here and we'll go to done. Here you choose whether or not you want to agree to usage data or do not agree. If you want to be able to use HEOS, you can download the HEOS app by scanning it here. I already have it downloaded on my phone, so we'll click next. And if you're the type that likes to use your phone as a remote, then you can download the Marantz app here. Now the Audyssey Multi-EQ Editor app is a $20 purchase. I already own this. This is actually a great feature. It allows you to run different settings and change those settings and save those as presets and be able to switch and load between those. If you just need to do it once and done, then you don't have to worry about it. But there are some additional features in the Audyssey app, so you might want to check that out. Now, if you want to use Dirac Live to calibrate your room, you'll need to purchase the Dirac license for this unit. We'll click next. And if you want the owner's manual, you can download it there. So far, I really like what I'm seeing in the Marantz Cinema 30. It definitely gives me a throwback to the days when I had the SR8015. It's just a beast of an amplifier. I love the look and the style of not only the unit itself, but the remote. I had a lot of time with the remote, setting it up, using it with the Audyssey, and I just like the way that it feels in the hand. It's got some nice weight to it. Doesn't feel like the cheap plastic of the SR8015. So I'm really excited the upgrades that they've made. But with that upgrade, or with those upgrades, it definitely is coming with a price. The price tag of the Cinema 30 at the time of this video is $4,500 US. Now, unfortunately, it's too late tonight to do some testing of the unit to hear how it sounds with these speakers that I'm going to announce first thing tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. So make sure you're ready to watch that video. It's going to be awesome. I think you're really going to like them. But I'll have plenty of time to spend with the unit, playing with those speakers, and then I'll add a subwoofer, add a center channel, some surrounds. We'll make some future content, so make sure you're subscribed. Now I'll leave a link down in the description below to the Cinema 30 if you want to pick one up. I'll also leave links to the other Cinema series as well. Hope you guys have an incredible week. God bless, and we will catch you in the next video.